Rocky Mountain House in Red Deer. Ty is a third-generation farmer on the family farm. Please welcome Mr. Tyler.
Thank you very much, Ken, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to thank on behalf of the government, thank the sponsors of this, the Eckville Chamber of Commerce, the Gilby Ag Society, the Eckville Ag Society, and the Rocky Mountain House Ag Society. There are a number of MLAs here that I'm going to introduce. If they could just stand when I call out their name. Honorable Luke Willett, Minister of Transportation and MLA for Innisfail. You can just hold your applause till we're finished. We don't want this to be a popularity contest. So Doug Griffith from Wainwright, Guy Boudelier from Fort McMurray, Paul Hinman from Calgary Glenmore, Rob Anderson from Airdrie Chestermere, Hugh McDonald from Edmonton Gold Bar, and I see Danielle Smith here as well. And the people that are going to but I want to take the opportunity now to introduce the people that will be participating. First, we have Dr. Ted Morton, who is the MLA for Foothills Rocky View, and actually the author and the person that took Bill 36, the Land Stewardship Act, as it is now known, through the legislature. Evan Berger, who is the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of SRD, and he's been working on this acts for some close to 3 years, so he knows things about it. And we also this evening have Honorable Dave Hancock, Edmonton Whitemud, and he's our government house leader. And before he got into politics, he was in a law firm, so he's a lawyer. So with that, if Kevin and Evan care to go ahead.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Dana and Ken and the Chamber for organizing tonight. Thank all of you for coming out. We in the PC Caucus recognize you all have serious concerns about property rights and the Land Stewardship Act and some of these other bills. We understand that because most of us represent a lot of rural landowners, and almost half our caucus, 32 out of 67 people, are rural landowners as well. So we're here to try to answer your questions and settle your concerns. It's our view that there's been a fairly systematic campaign of misinterpretation and misrepresentation of the Land Stewardship Act, and our goal here tonight is to kind of set the record straight and answer your questions. There is a handout that we have that I just left, but it summarizes what we're about to go through. We'll get right to the first myth, if we could. There's been one of the myths out there is that there's been no consultation in building the Land Stewardship Act. Well, the record is pretty clear. It was 3 years in the making, and consultations all over the province. When we finally drafted the legislation based on that consultation, it went through obviously the 3 readings, and we actually got unanimous support in the Assembly. It's important that you know the process by which the regional plans that are called for under the Land Stewardship Act are done. First of all, a regional advisory council is put together, consists of 13 to 15 people, which is kind of a cross-section of the region that represents. It represents industrial, agricultural, civic, and other organizations, Aboriginal. They meet for anywhere from six to 9 months and produce a report called the Regional Advisory, the Regional Advisory Council report, the RAC report. When that comes out, then there's a period of consultation on the RAC report. Once that's finished, goes back into the government. The government works on producing a draft regional plan, and when that comes out, then there is further consultation on that before implementation. So just for example, right now, if you've been following this, there are two regional plans that are underway right now. The first is the Lower Athabasca, basically the oil sands area. You can all understand why we put that first, because of its economic importance to the future of the province. The RAC report came out about 1.5 years ago. There was consultation on that. The government draft report was just released about 3 weeks ago, and starting this week, there's public consultation on that. The other one is the South Saskatchewan, which is basically the bow and the drainages that go into the bow and the old man. The RAC committee, the Regional Advisory Council, met all of last year devising their report. That was released in March, and the consultation period on that will begin later this summer. So that's the nature of consultation. I'd also point out, if we go to the next slide, that most of you know a little bit about my political background. I'm not have big confidence in government getting things right all the time, and I'd have to say, after 6 years in Edmonton, that confidence hasn't improved any. So we put in a couple of safeguards, a 5-year mandatory review, so there's opportunity for improvements and corrections, and also a 10-year sunset clause. So it forces the government of the day, if they're going to continue with the regional plan, to go out and consult again. Now, based on the feedback we got from Albertans, Bill 10 has been put in and added about a dozen new amendments, and 2 of these new amendments address the consultation. As I said, we're doing the consultation anyhow, in terms of with the RAC report and then the final government draft plan, but they weren't legally required. Some people said, oh, what if they don't do it? So we put in a legal requirement, so now it has to be done. And also, any regional plans or amendments must be made public in the Legislative Assembly before they're implemented. So again, that creates an opportunity for public discussion and feedback. So that's myth number 1, and I'll turn it over to Evan for myth number 2.
Thanks, Ted. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to join you here this evening. Myth number 2 states that Alberta Land Stewardship Act destroys local decision-making. It's true that Alberta Land Stewardship Act provides that a regional plan does bind local government bodies, but Alberta Land Stewardship Act Section 15 also binds Government of Alberta, all government regulatory agencies, and all other persons, which means the ERCB, the NRCB, AUC, all of those are also bound by the Act. So when you look at that in the ERCB respect, if a regional plan at the end of the day, after all the consultations, comes forward and says there shall be no drilling in this specific area because you may have to go through a major aquifer, it simply says the ERCB cannot overrule that. They must ask for an amendment to the statutory consent, move over, or do something different so we can still obtain the objective, but we aren't going to threaten that water supply or whatever the regional plan should happen to have said for that particular spot. Fact 2 goes to the respect for local decision making. Municipalities still make the local decisions. The regional plans will help guide, but not take over local decisions. In the big picture of regional land use, we have to consider all the activities on the landscape, balance the development and conservation, basing it on the impact on land, air, water, and biodiversity. In all of that, these plans are at the 50,000 foot level to begin with. The Regional Advisory Council comes back in and says, okay, this is what we heard, and now we need to go back out to the consultation to see what the local people want to put in there. And I'll speak to an area in my own constituency where south of Staveley, where water is a major concern. In 2005 or 6, an oil company drilled through the Staveley aquifer. This aquifer puts out 300 gallons a minute, 15 feet through a 3-inch pipe with no pump on it. They lost that aquifer to the top side for days. They had 7 or 8 water trucks, vac trucks, and cats there pushing dirt up to try and keep this thing sealed up a little bit until they got it cemented off. So if regional plan at the local level comes back and the local input into that says, no, this is the area